The sun beats down heavily on the asphalt of Brickell Avenue. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Miami. The traffic is thick, moving in a slow, frustrated crawl. The air smells of salt water, expensive cologne, and exhaust. A young man with a microphone and a cameraman steps off the curb. He is scanning the gridlock. He isn't looking for a person. He is looking for a profile. He spots it. A neon green McLaren 720S idling at a red light. The young man jogs over. He knocks lightly on the glass. The window rolls down. Inside is a man in his late 20s, wearing a heavy gold Audemars Piguet watch and designer sunglasses. The young man with the microphone asks the same question he has asked 100 times today. "What do you do for a living?" The driver smiles. He leans his elbow against the carbon fiber door. He looks directly into the lens. He says he is in e-commerce. He says he runs a digital marketing agency. He talks about waking up at 4 in the morning. He talks about outworking the competition. He talks about cutting out toxic friends, taking massive risks, and grinding while everyone else is sleeping. The light turns green. The window rolls up. The engine roars. The car disappears into the traffic. Within 24 hours, that 30-second interaction will be viewed by 3 million people. 3 million people sitting in their bedrooms, on the subway, or in the break room at work. They will read the comment section. They will take notes. They will believe they just received a masterclass in wealth creation from a man who has conquered the financial system. But there is a detail missing from the video. A detail the algorithm does not want you to see. A detail that shatters the entire reality of the transaction. Behind the scenes of this multi-million-dollar content machine, the creators operating in hubs like Miami, Los Angeles, and Atlanta quietly acknowledge a deeply uncomfortable statistic. Up to 40% of the supercars they intercept for these videos do not belong to the people driving them. They are short-term rentals, procured through platforms like Turo or local exotic car agencies. The man in the McLaren is not a titan of industry. He is a 24-year-old influencer. He rented a car for a weekend content shoot, hoping to project the illusion of success. He is doing this to sell a course to people who are desperate to escape their own financial anxiety. We watch these videos because we want to believe there is a secret. We want to believe that wealth is loud, that it is visible, that it can be explained in 15 seconds at a stoplight. But the entire ecosystem of public wealth advice is built on a foundation of carefully engineered deception. And this deception did not begin on the internet. It began almost a century ago, with a lie that built an empire. It is 1937. The Great Depression has completely shattered the American economy. The Dust Bowl has ruined the heartland. Men in worn-out suits are standing in bread lines. Families are losing their homes. The psychological state of the country is one of absolute desperation. People are terrified of the future. They are looking for a way out. And a man named Napoleon Hill hands them a map. He publishes a book called Think and Grow Rich. It quickly becomes one of the best-selling financial books in human history. The premise is simple, and it is incredibly seductive. Hill claims that back in 1908, as a young reporter, he was granted a private meeting with Andrew Carnegie. At the time, Carnegie was a steel magnate and the wealthiest man on earth. Hill claims that Carnegie gave him a secret commission, a mission to interview 500 of the world's most successful millionaires and distill the ultimate formula for human success. Hill claims he spent decades sitting in private drawing rooms with the titans of industry: Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John D. Rockefeller. He claims he extracted their habits, their daily routines, their mindset. It is the exact same premise as the modern street interview. I ask the rich how they did it, and now I am giving the secret directly to you. The book sells millions of copies. It creates the entire modern self-help and wealth mindset industry. There is only one problem. Decades later, modern historians decided to verify the story. They combed through Andrew Carnegie's extensive archives.
They read his private diaries. They analyzed his authorized biographies, his letters, and his daily appointment ledgers. They found something strange. Napoleon Hill is never mentioned. Not once.
There is no record of a meeting. There is no record of a commission. The founding mythology of the wealth mindset genre was entirely fabricated. Hill didn't interview the elite. He invented a narrative that the masses were desperate to hear. He understood a fundamental vulnerability in human psychology. If you associate yourself with extreme wealth, the public will automatically grant you authority. They will stop asking for proof because they want the secret to be real. That psychological mechanism was so powerful, it became the blueprint for the next century of financial theater. Fast forward to the 1970s. Long before social media existed, a televangelist named Reverend Ike pioneered the visual language of the modern wealth flex. Reverend Ike didn't just preach prosperity from a pulpit, he performed it. He would intentionally park fleets of leased Cadillacs and Rolls Royces outside his churches, the chrome gleaming in the sun. He would bring his congregants on camera and interview them. He would ask them how his teachings had bought them these luxury vehicles. It was a perfectly engineered prop. The car was the undeniable proof that the system worked. If you questioned the theology, he simply pointed to the parking lot. Today, the props have just moved locations. They have moved from the church parking lot to the tax havens of Europe. Scroll through any social media feed, and you will inevitably see the billionaires of Monaco. Creators walk through the pristine marina. The water is a brilliant, impossible blue. They interview men stepping off mega yachts or climbing out of Bugattis, asking for the secret to their unfathomable success. Monaco is presented as the ultimate concentration of human achievement, a paradise where the absolute winners of capitalism gather to enjoy their spoils. But European tax authorities see a very different reality. In recent years, agencies like Italy's Guardia di Finanza have launched massive sting operations. One was aptly named Operation Fake Monaco. Investigators knocked on the doors of luxury apartment buildings overlooking the sea. But when the doors opened, they didn't find billionaires. They found that a significant portion of these so-called Monaco elites are nothing more than tax tourists. They are individuals who rent tiny, completely empty closets in the principality. They cram 50 mailboxes onto a single door. They do this just to claim a legal mailing address and avoid taxation in their home countries. In reality, they are living full-time in France or Italy. The wealth on display is often a carefully constructed legal fiction, designed to evade the law while projecting supreme status to the outside world. When you strip away the leased cars, the fabricated histories, and the empty closets, the illusion begins to fracture. But the most powerful lie in the wealth industry isn't about the cars or the locations. It is the lie they tell you about how they started. Whenever a millionaire is interviewed on the street or profiled in a business magazine, they are inevitably asked about their origins. How did they achieve this success? Roughly 70% of them will look directly into the camera and claim to be 100% self-made. They will talk about grit. They will talk about sacrifice. They will talk about starting in a garage, eating instant noodles, and pulling themselves up from nothing. It makes for a fantastic story. It feeds the American myth that anyone can reach the top if they just push hard enough. But researchers Paul Shervish and John Havens at Boston College decided to look deeper into this self-reported data. They analyzed the financial backgrounds of the wealthy, and they found a massive, deliberate loophole in how these individuals define being self-made. When surveyed about inheritance by the media, these individuals can legally answer no. They answer no because they did not receive a massive direct cash transfer upon a parent's death.
But they conveniently leave out what economists call invisible subsidies, the quiet, structural safety nets that guarantee their survival. They do not count the massive zero-interest loans from family members that allowed them to start their first business without facing a bank's rejection. They do not count living entirely rent-free in a family property in a major city during their high-risk startup phase. They do not count the co-signed banknotes that allowed them to access institutional capital that a truly poor person could never touch. They take the credit for the touchdown without admitting they started the drive on the 1-yard line. This creates a deeply dangerous psychological trap for the viewer. A young man watching on his phone believes that all it takes is hard work and a willingness to risk everything. He looks at his own failure and assumes he just isn't grinding hard enough. He doesn't realize that the person he is idolizing took a risk with a massive, invisible parachute strapped to their back, while he is being told to jump out of the plane without one. The entire content machine relies on the perception of permanence. When you see a man in a penthouse giving advice, you naturally assume that penthouse is his permanent reality. You assume he wakes up there every day, year after year. But wealth, for the vast majority of people who achieve it, is not a permanent state. It is a fleeting anomaly. A massive longitudinal study conducted by Thomas Herschel at Cornell and Mark Rank at Washington University sought to map the life cycle of American wealth. They didn't look at a single year. They analyzed American tax data spanning over 4 decades, from 1968 all the way to 2011. The numbers they found completely destroy the myth of the entrenched 1%.
They discovered that 11.1% of Americans will actually hit the top 1% of income for at least 1 year of their lives. That is a staggering number of people touching extreme wealth. But here is the catch. Only 0.6% stay there for a decade. Most millionaire years are not the result of a brilliant recurring business model. They are not the result of a genius marketing agency or a perfectly optimized e-commerce store. They are the result of a single, highly taxable, liquidating event. The sale of a family home, the sale of a small business after 30 years of operation, a one-time stock vest, or an inheritance. For 12 months, they are statistically part of the elite. And then, gravity returns. The creator with the microphone catches them on the single best day of their financial lives. They capture the anomaly. They package it as a permanent lifestyle, and they sell the resulting delusion to millions of people. The core message of the modern street interview is always about extreme aggression. Go all in, burn the boats. Diversification is for idiots. Concentrate your capital into one massive bet. This advice sounds incredibly powerful. It sounds like the secret the banks and the traditional financial advisors are trying to hide from you. But history tells a very different, deeply uncomfortable story. In the late 1920s, publications like Forbes ran breathless profiles on America's greatest self-made millionaire geniuses. Men like Samuel Insull in the utility sector, Arthur Cutten in the commodities market. They were the original financial influencers. They were highly concentrated, wildly aggressive, and universally hailed as savants. Just months after the 1929 market crash, a staggering number of these exact men went completely bankrupt. They faced federal indictment. They fled the country in disgrace. Their extreme concentration didn't protect them. It destroyed them. Decades later, in the 1990s, a man named Wade Cook became the ultimate wealth guru. He operated out of brightly lit hotel conference rooms. The air smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Middle-class families sat in folding chairs, listening to a man who promised them financial liberation. He sold millions of copies of his book, Wall Street Money Machine. He preached secret stock strategies and aggressive options trading to people who couldn't afford to lose their savings. He was everywhere, on television, on the radio, in the mail. But in 2007, a U.S. district judge looked down from the bench and sentenced Wade Cook to 88 months in federal prison for tax evasion. During the trial, the brutal truth was finally exposed. Cook's millions didn't come from his brilliant stock strategies. The strategies were largely a failure. His money came from selling the seminars to people who wanted to be just like him. But you don't even have to look at the frauds to see the danger of this advice. You just have to look at the math. A 2012 study by Barclays Wealth, titled Risk and Wealth, examined how the ultra-rich actually handle their money. They verified that the street interview advice is half right. Extreme concentration in a single asset or a single business is indeed how most entrepreneurs make their first million. But the study also revealed the devastating second half of the equation. Holding that extreme concentration past the 5-year mark is the single biggest reason first-generation millionaires lose all their wealth. The strategy that builds the empire is the exact same strategy that burns it to the ground. The influencer tells you to go all in.
The data tells you that going all in is how you eventually lose everything. So if the people screaming into the microphones are renting their cars, if they are hiding their safety nets,
if they are offering advice that statistically leads to bankruptcy, where are the actual ultra-wealthy? Why don't we hear from them on TikTok or YouTube? Because you are looking at a profound psychological survivorship bias. The people answering these questions on camera represent a very specific type of personality. The nouveau riche, the deeply narcissistic, or the salesman actively pushing a personal brand. True ultra-high net worth individuals, the people moving institutional capital, they operate in absolute silence. They utilize private family offices hidden in unmarked buildings. They force anyone who enters their orbit to sign strict non-disclosure agreements. And more importantly, they view the public display of wealth not as a flex. They view it as a severe, life-threatening security liability. In the world of real wealth, top executives and billionaires are often required by their firms to carry kidnap and ransom insurance. These policies cost a fortune, designed to deploy hostage negotiators and ransom capital if a family member is taken. And the primary stipulation of carrying this insurance is absolute silence. The individual cannot publicly flaunt their net worth. They cannot draw attention to their liquidity. If a guy in a $3,000 suit is stopping on the street to tell a stranger with a microphone exactly how much money he makes, he is not a titan of industry.
He is a target. Or more likely, he is a fraud. The real money is entirely invisible. When you finally strip away the noise, when you mute the influencers and ignore the rented cars, when you look at the actual data of who holds the capital in this country, you discover the final, most deeply unsettling truth about the wealth industry. It is completely, utterly boring. In 1996, Thomas J. Stanley published The Millionaire Next Door. It established the idea of the low-key, frugal millionaire. But later researchers found a fascinating flaw in his methodology. Stanley often found his subjects by pulling data from zip codes with high-value homes and luxury car registrations. By doing this, he accidentally filtered out the most interesting data point of all: the hyper-frugal millionaires who never moved out of their working-class neighborhoods entirely. Years later, in 2018, his daughter Sarah Stanley Follow published a continuation of his work. She looked past the luxury zip codes, and she found that the highest concentrations of self-made millionaires were not in tech startups. They were not in crypto. They were not in venture capital. They were operating in highly unsexy, dull normal business-to-business industries. Picture a scrap metal processing yard in Ohio. The air is thick with dust and the deafening roar of hydraulic shears. The owner is wearing scuffed steel-toe boots and driving a 10-year-old Ford truck. He does not look wealthy. He does not want to look wealthy. He manages mobile home parks. He owns commercial dry cleaning facilities. He leases heavy equipment.
This isn't a new phenomenon. Following the introduction of the income tax, the U.S. Treasury published a millionaire census in 1916. The data revealed that 62% of all American millionaires lived in just 3 cities, and they overwhelmingly derived their wealth from 3 incredibly boring things: timberland grants, steel, and railroads. The vehicles change. The underlying mechanism remains exactly the same. The 1983 Survey of Consumer Finances by the Federal Reserve was the first truly comprehensive look at ultra-high net worth households. While modern videos scream that high-ticket sales and relentless hustle are the keys to the universe, the 1983 data showed that the top wealth preservation and generation tool for the absolute richest Americans was something that would put a modern audience to sleep: tax-exempt municipal bonds paired with real estate leverage. Even today, the numbers refuse to support the narrative. Fidelity Investments tracks retirement data across the United States. Currently, there are roughly 500,000 401k millionaires in their system alone. Do you know what the average profile of those millionaires is? It is a 59-year-old human being who has been working a standard W-2 job and contributing to the exact same employer plan for 26 years. No supercars, no empty closets in Monaco, no aggressive options trading. Just decades of silent, unglamorous, compounding discipline.
The internet did not invent the human desire for extreme wealth, but it perfected the monetization of our impatience.
When you truly look at the hidden architecture of the wealth guru industry, when you see the rented McLarens, the fabricated histories, the invisible subsidies, and the inevitable wipeouts, you begin to feel a heavy, lingering discomfort. The realization is not just that the influencers are lying to you. The haunting realization is that they have to lie to you. If a creator stood on the street in Miami and told you that the secret to extreme wealth was to start a commercial dry cleaning business, secure a zero-interest loan from your parents, lock your money in municipal bonds, and sit quietly in the same house for 3 decades, you would keep scrolling. The system feeds us the illusion of the rented McLaren because the reality of the 26-year 401k cannot be packaged into a dopamine hit. We are sold a frantic, dangerous fantasy because the truth is simply too slow to monetize. Tomorrow morning, millions of people will open their phones. They will watch a 22-year-old step out of a car he does not own, to give advice he did not follow, to sell a secret that does not exist. They will take notes. They will feel inspired. They will feel like they are finally learning the rules of the game. They will never realize the game was designed to ensure they never win.